Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Sports Talk with Austin, your daily dose of sports entertainment. In today's video, me and Jackson Johnson preview and break down the 2023-2024 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between the Ole Miss Rebels and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Who can you trust more, James Franklin or Lane Kiffen? We break all that down and more, and we give our preview and our predictions for this big time game in Atlanta. You've got the Ole Miss Rebels against the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. In both teams finished the season at 10-2. And Jackson, you are very familiar with Ole Miss because Alabama plays them on an annual just about every year. So you've got a good look at them just about every year. Talk to the people, Jackson, that haven't seen some Ole Miss football, what this team could do well and what they cannot do well.
Well, I've looked at Ole Miss, and they've done pretty well in the passing offense, and they finished at 26 in the season. And the running game, I was looking at the Ole Miss running game, and it's just been kind of meh compared to other schools. But Penn State's running game has been tremendous. It's at 24th in the nation, and it's just the thing about Ole Miss is they are the Penn State of the SEC. Everybody talks about how Penn State can't win a big game, but Ole Miss cannot win the big game. Yeah, they won against LSU, but they couldn't get it done against Alabama, Georgia. And Lane Kiffen, we've seen that he cannot win the bowl games. Yeah, he won it in his first year, but he couldn't win the Sugar Bowl in his second year, and he couldn't win the Texas Bowl against Texas Tech. Is history going to repeat itself for Ole Miss, or will they win the Peach Bowl and use that to catapult on a upcoming 2024 season with an amazing class on the transfer portal and a schedule without Alabama?
I will say though, Jackson, that's going to be interesting, especially for Ole Miss. But another interesting thing is Penn State. They're 10-2, and Jackson. The old story goes they always lose to Ohio State and Michigan. Well, guess who they lost to, Jackson? Ohio
Yep.
State and Michigan again. I mean, Jackson, one of these years, Penn State's going to get one of them for Christ's sakes. I mean, they can't keep losing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll get over that hump at some point, like maybe next year or year after. I mean, Penn State, they're not going to have Michigan next year, so that's going to help them quite a bit. And we know Ole Miss isn't going to have Bama next year. That's going to help them quite a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Dart, I am curious to see how he does in this game. Man, he's had a pretty good season. 2,985 passing yards, 20 touchdowns. And we see Quinshot Judkins, he's had 1,052 yards and 15 touchdowns. He's
Jackson,
been tremendous.
Jackson, I would like to bring up part of the interruption, but Quinshawn Junkins, I think he's the reason Ole Miss has had such a successful year. He makes that offense run so much smoother for Jackson Dart because Jackson, just imagine if they didn't have that running game,
Oh,
what
no.
their record could be.
Oh, Lord. They'd be in trouble. They would be in huge amounts of trouble.
Because Jackson, if you look at their schedule, they played Alabama this year, Georgia, LSU. I mean, those three right there are almost impossible task. They went on the road to Bama and Georgia. And the fact, Jackson, that looking at it now, that they almost beat Alabama, the team that's in the playoffs. This says something about Lane Kiffin. Maybe he's finally turning the corner. And they got a big win over LSU. And we talked about them the other night in our latest video predictions on the rest of the non-New Year's Six. LSU had a terrible defense, no excuse. But Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. had a fantastic year, and that Ole Miss win is looking real good now over LSU. And as for Penn State, as for Penn State, Jackson, help me out here. What's Penn State's best win? I'm sorry, Penn State fans. I'm not meaning to be rude, but good Grisha Mahdi.
Well, Iowa's a great win. I mean, they got that Iowa win on CBS Saturday night.
But Jackson, it's Iowa. I get it. Iowa went to the Big Ten championship. Don't get me wrong. I ain't discrediting Penn State. If you just look at their schedule, Jackson, they're just plain old boring Penn State. They're beating all the teams they should, and they can't beat the two biggest teams on their schedule, and it's very frustrating. Don't get me wrong. Iowa's a great win, like you said, but it's Iowa. Iowa has no offense. If you can't beat Iowa, you're in trouble. Like, Penn
Yeah.
State should essentially run them off the field, and they did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they also got that pretty good win against West Virginia, which is looking better by the day. And imagine if West Virginia beats North Carolina in the Duke Mayo Bowl. That'll look even better right there. I mean, that Northwestern victory, who'd have thought that would be a great victory in the long run?
Yeah, we gave our props to Northwestern when we talked about their bowl game. We had no clue Northwestern was going to be this good, this quick with David Braun. 7-5. Give him all credit in the world, which we did. Go check it out on our first preview video of these bowl games. We gave Northwestern all the love they can handle. Don't you guys worry. But to this game here, I will say, Jackson, the Illinois win at the time I thought was a good win, but it turns out Illinois was not so good at the end.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. But
But
there
I
is
will,
something good that Penn State has, and it's going to be especially good against that Ole Miss running game. Penn
yeah,
State, Penn State leads the nation in rushing yards allowed per game. They do not mess around when it comes to the running game on offense. They will smack it down like a chicken nugget.
I will say though, Jackson, the one thing that concerns me is if Ole Miss can get pressure on Drew Aller, how good's the Penn State offense going to be? Because we've seen what happens when Penn State doesn't have their running game. Drew Aller tends to come up short. Ohio State and Michigan put in those blitz packages and kind of disguised some coverages and made some big time plays on defense that Drew Aller and that offense kind of sputtered. If you look at the final scores, 20-12 against Ohio State, State, State only putting up 12 points for a team that's been putting up a buttload of points the weeks previous, and then against Michigan 24-15, that's just not going to get it done. And with Penn State's offense being putrid against those two big teams, that's very concerning. This is why I'm very concerned for Penn State. As for Ole Miss, on the other hand, Jackson, their offense has been humming, and then they ran into what we thought was going to be a dynasty in Georgia. But it turns out Alabama says, not on our watch. This is still our house. But
Yeah.
we'll get to Alabama later. We'll get to them in a later day. Don't you worry. But as for this game here, I will say one of the biggest keys for Penn State is they got to get their running game going, and they got to get pressure on Jackson Dart if they want a chance. They just got to, and maybe create a turnover or two. Jackson, what is your key to the game for Ole Miss to get the W?
Oh, man. They're going to have to make sure they keep relying on Quinshad Judkins, and they got to make sure Jackson Dart can have a good day. And they got to put a lot of pressure on Drew Aller. Make sure they stop the Penn State running game. They do that, they are good to go because Penn State is 90th on passing offense. It's not a good look for Penn State.
Yeah. If Penn State gets the running game going, Jackson, Ole Miss may have a long day on defense. But Jackson, I think I'm ready to make my pick. I'm ready whenever you are with that.
You go
Are we
for
ready
it,
to give her?
man. You go for that pick, man.
So I'm gonna go after everything we've just talked about. I'm gonna pick a Ole Miss win, 31-28. Ole Miss is gonna win it by a field goal. Jackson, your pick.
You're gonna go with the Ole Miss Rebels, huh?
Hmm? I'm going Ole Miss. What about you, good buddy?
Well, I just gotta tell you, not so fast, my friend. I gotta go with Penn State. I'm going with those Nitty Lions. I think they can get the job done. That rushing defense is gonna be a bad day for Quinshad Judkins.
That is that is fair. We split on that pick. And for more great content here at Sports Talk with Austin, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell so you never miss another video on anything college football, college basketball, and the NBA. Hey, here at Sports Talk with Austin, it's Cardinals for life, baby. I'm out. Stay in.